We all have those things that we come back to years later and wonder how we even enjoyed it in the first place. Sometimes it's a band, sometimes it's a game. In this case, it's an anime. Anohana is probably the worst example I ever had of this, because not only did I waste my time, but I also gassed it up and had my friend watch it. Last time I watched this anime was in high school, and I don't know what came over me to enjoy the show originally, but whatever I was going through wasn't in the room with us as we watched. I'll start off with the good. The premise is really heartwarming. The story follows our main character Jinta and his deceased childhood friend Menma as they reunite with the Goof Troop and help Menma pass on to the afterlife. From the start of the show, Jinta doesn't really know if Menma is a ghost or a figment of his imagination due to stress. Either way, they're living together and have a nice relationship. There's also, hold on. Is there really no more to this section? Well, there doesn't seem to be any more to the section, but on the next page it says, "I'm 14 and this is deep." Anohana suffers from "I'm 14 and this is deep" syndrome, like heavy. That's probably why I liked this so much back in the day. I was a little too old to fall for that kind of cheap writing, but still did somehow. There's so much wrong with this anime. The pacing is bad, the characters are terrible, the subplots are meaningless, and the drama is so artificial it makes American cheese look like the realest shit you've seen in your life. The story starts off with the most unlikable main character being unlikable to Menma. After spending 2 minutes of being a dick to everybody in his vicinity, he sits down to eat and pops a hard-on for this child and passes out. Am I supposed to be rooting for this character or something? After he wakes back up, this child is laying on him before giving him another hard-on. How far are we into the show? 5.5 minutes? Most of it's just nothing? Alright. For the next minute and a half, she continues to sit on his lap as they try to figure out what she is and how to get rid of her. Apparently, she has a wish that needs to be granted, but doesn't know what the wish is. Okay, cool, now we have a goal. Grant Menma her wish. A ring from the doorbell is heard, and it turns out to be Anjo, a childhood friend of Jinta's. She's here to bring him summer homework just 2 days before school starts back up, and calls him out for being pathetic for wanting to live a life as a hermit. Once they head back inside, we get our first mention of things being different now, before calling her a rotten bitch for seemingly no reason.
That rotten bitch would never agree to—
Rotten bitch?
And right before the scene ends, we get yet another mention of things being different.
It's everything. All of it's different now.
I hope you see where this is going, because I honestly didn't see the scale of it. Later on, the two of them run into Tsuruko and Yukiatsu. After being a pile of dung for most of the episode, we're supposed to feel bad when Yukiatsu plays the forced villain and insults Jinta for being hung up on Menma's death. Jinta runs away from both of them, then we get another scene about how things have changed.
Do you get it now? Everyone's changed.
Then he gets home, and we get a flashback about how things were different. But during the flashback, we come to understand why Jinta is regretful about Menma's death. And at the end of it, Jinta sprints to the old hideout in hopes of finding Menma since he told her to buzz off in the previous scene. Alright, sick. From that first episode, we have a goal, characters in need of growth, an antagonist, and an explanation for Jinta's regret. This is starting to sound like something good. Just put that on the pot, let it simmer. Maybe we'll get something out of it later on. Keep an eye on the timer, you do not want it to burn. Everything is playing out pretty smoothly for the most part up until episode 4. This is the episode. It's all downhill from here. Up until episode 4, people were helping out Jinta and granting Menma's wish. But at the end of episode 4, the characters are all hanging out in their childhood base when Popo, this is Popo by the way, goes out to use the bathroom and spots Menma. How exactly did he see Menma though if she's on his shoulders? Hold on. How did Menma see Menma? Well, turns out it's Yukiatsu, dressed up as a dead girl. Why? Why? He literally doesn't explain it. All he says is that he thinks he's at fault for Menma's death, and he's confused as to why he can't see her, but Jinta can. Up to episode 4, we get accustomed to all the characters and what their flaws are, and in any other story, that would mean the characters would grow past who they were originally, but in this case, they just stagnate. Some of the characters have held a grudge toward one another since childhood, so if you really want to think about it, they haven't changed much since the age of 10. Anjo was jealous of Menma as a kid, so she held a grudge for years. Yukiatsu was jealous of Jinta as a kid and is still hung up on his 10-year-old love interest, and Tsuruko was supposedly jealous of Menma because Tsuruko had a crush on Yukiatsu, but this was never really explored at all in the show. But all of this stays until the very last episode. Honestly, Popo is the most likable character. Everybody else was always at each other's throats for absolutely no reason the entire show. It would be a normal conversation and boom, people would start screaming at each other.
Minako's shy, so maybe you could give this letter to Matsuyuki for her? Stop it!
You're in class with him all day long. Why not do it yourself?
Hey, wait a sec. Fine, be a bitch then!
I thought you were shy! Especially between Yukiatsu and Jinta. Yukiatsu is just disgusting and finds any reason to ridicule Jinta. Lack of character development aside, there are so many reoccurring moments that happen for no reason. In the very first episode, we had mentions about back then or things are different now, back to back, and that doesn't change throughout the show. We also get the phrase pitiful constantly, back to back to back within the first 5 minutes of the episode or some shit. We also get sexualization of the characters, even Menma being a child throughout the show. There are a lot of moments where Menma sits on somebody's lap, and while it can be a childish gesture, I can't view it in good faith since there are 3 moments sexualizing Menma in the first 2 episodes. Matter of fact, I'm gonna say 4, since Yukiatsu's weird ass has a Menma dress that he sniffs. So yeah, 3 moments and an honorable mention. There's a subplot where people think Anjo gets passed around for no reason. It does not change her as a character, and it didn't progress Menma's wish plot in any way. It's a show that's supposed to be about characters coming to terms with their childhood friend's death and in turn becoming best friends again. Why do we need this much sexualization? Since so many moments are repeated throughout the show, I truthfully think you could take half of most of these episodes out and the show would be so much better. This could have easily been a movie if they had taken out all the repetition and needless sexualization. Another thing I noticed is Menma constantly interacting with things around her. She can play the Game Boy, she can hold on to people, she can take a shower, she can use a phone, she might as well be human. But it takes her 8 episodes to think about writing on a piece of paper. To be fair, she's just a kid, so maybe she wouldn't have thought about it. But what about Yukiatsu or Popo having the idea? Yukiatsu doesn't believe Jinta in the slightest and gets angry at him every step of the way, but never asks for proof. Popo, on the other hand, asks for proof and believes Menma is around, but for some reason never asks Menma for a surefire way to prove her existence. But looking past why the characters never ask for anything, why hasn't she done anything crazy up until episode 8? As a child, she has some of the craziest patience. An example I can think of off the top of my head is when Anjo was cutting sausages in episode 3 to make him look like little octopus or squids. It's shown that Menma's excited to watch Anjo do that, but for some reason she waits until the entire package is cut up and Anjo walks out to question it. I feel like I'm nitpicking, but my point here still stands. There are so many moments where she can show that she is capable of interacting with the real world, but she just doesn't. Anjo even sees Jinta get pulled around by Menma and just plays it off as something weird that Jinta was doing. The last episode is such a juxtaposition from the entire show. It's so good. It's such a banger outside of the nothing argument that happens at the beginning of the episode. Throughout the argument, there are some pretty good moments though. Even Popo breaks down and it's completely in character. He's the only one who actually seems like he cares about Menma and wants to help her pass on. Somehow they made the comic relief character into the only likable character. Popo supremacy. I love Popo. Throughout the episode, Menma is slowly vanishing, and near the end, even Jinta can't see her anymore. The entire time, she's scared to pass on without saying goodbye to everybody, so she uses pages from her diary to say goodbye to the group before she disappears. It's an ironically great payoff to such a huge waste of time. I love the concept, I love some of the moments, and I love the last episode. But overall, the show is played out so thoughtlessly. I would go into every episode and explain how I feel about every single one, but that would require me to watch the show again, and I really do not want to do that. But my point of view still stands. Every episode, there is always something in it that could easily have been taken out, and I would like the episode a million times better. This show is filled with so much meaningless fluff, and if it were an hour-long movie or an hour-and-a-half long movie, I feel like they would be forced to only fit in the important parts to make the ending feel earned and be a really good payoff. I think a lot of people are in the same boat as me and have not watched it for years, and they have really fond memories of it. I remember really liking that last episode and really enjoying the first episode, but yeah, those are my thoughts about the show. If you still like the show, there's no harm in it. You can enjoy what you want to enjoy, but I held this show up pretty high back in high school, and looking back on it, it is not as good as I remember in the slightest. Thanks for watching. If you have any opinions about the show or the video, feel free to leave them down in the comments. I have more videos planned in the future, more anime, more video games, and some news about Gears of War, because that shit, I think, actually finally has some news coming out. So hopefully that shit happens. But yeah, thanks for watching the video.